Holly Wilson. I am of the Delaware tribe of Western Oklahoma and Cherokee. My work, I used to call myself a sculptor or a photographer or a clay artist, and now I just refer to myself as an artist because for me, it doesn't matter the material. In the work I create, the piece itself dictates what material I use. I was drawn to this specific piece, Dreaming Dance Mask, for two reasons. One is the idea of dreaming and that idea of another place. So when I look at the mask and I look at the title, it makes me wonder, what were they dreaming about? The masks, from what I've read, had to do with performing prayers and ceremonies, often in the winter months up in Alaska. And so it makes me think of what I would be dreaming of. Masks for me in my own work have a lot to do with the idea of identity and being able to transform yourself and transport yourself to another place. And so when I look at ancient masks or historic masks, I wonder how much of that idea of transportation, whether it be to a spirit realm, to a personal realm, to a sacred realm, how many of the people who made these works had that same sensation. There's obviously were for a much more sacred meaning. Not that my art isn't sacred, but that it's a different idea of trying to convey an emotion of where I am or how I see something in the world for my children, and to be able to kind of push that out onto a larger audience. That idea of, as a native or as an artist, are you more connected to a piece that you see? And I don't – some people would say yes because it's part of my family or it's part of my heritage, but I think really we're all interconnected with this underlying kind of stream that connects all of us. It may not be my heritage when I see a mask, whether it be African, Native, but I feel that connection to the idea of what it meant on a spiritual and emotional level. As an artist, I can appreciate it because it's aesthetic and it's got beautiful aspects, the way it was carved. I love the tool marks that go up around the nose, the little bits that they use for the teeth, and how the feathers were chosen. And I think even though you're not an artist, you can still see beauty in that. And in some ways, maybe more so than even an artist, because you're not critically analyzing every aspect of how a piece was created. I laugh because when I go to a museum and I'm standing there with people, I can tell the difference of artist and non-artist, because artists are constantly trying to understand how the piece was created. So you'll catch us looking behind the piece or to the side of the piece or under the piece or really close to the detail, where sometimes I think, other people who are non-artists stand back and just drink in the beauty of what the piece is. And they put their own associations with whatever that work is. And so I don't think my connection to my heritage makes me better at understanding it, because I think we all take our connection to our heritage and we lay it on top of or beside or underneath whatever works we see, and that makes it rich and emotionally impactful for each viewer. The eyes being asymmetrical, because it almost makes you wonder if that eye is representing the idea of a wink, or if there was something beautiful in the way the wood was that caused the artist to choose that angle. That's where I wish I knew more about the story behind the piece specifically. But as an artist myself, I've gotten to the point where everything that's in a work has to have meaning. So if I'm using sterling silver for birds, it's because they represent things that are precious. And I would think that an artist, especially making something that has to do with sacred aspects of their culture, would have every single mark in there that would have intense meaning. And so it does make you wonder about what the eye represents. Is it the eye that's watching? Is it the eye that's winking? Is there something important about that? For me, it's always an interesting thing what provokes an artist to create a piece of work. What is it that drives you to pick the material you picked and the colors you chose? How much of your work is connected to meaning? How much of your work is connected to aesthetics? How much of your work is dictated by an outside source? Was there patterns that were made, or were each of these artisans their own creator? Was this something that was a vision they saw? Was it something they dreamt? What was the connection? Was it a family, an animal that came to identify who they were as a tribe member? there's so many questions that you build on as an artist for yourself that you wonder how much of the choices and the decisions that you make in the creation of your own work are also decisions and choices and creations of other artists' work. And I think that would be a huge conversation to find out. And then how many of these masks or other works did you create in different manners? Is this something that was given to people? Was it something that was just yours that you made? This is something to do with prayer. It has to do with the rituals that they had and connecting with the other realm, their spirit realm. So I think, like I said earlier, that idea that though it's not your heritage, you're able to put your heritage within it because you feel that connection, almost like a heartbeat really low that rides under the earth that we all don't want to acknowledge, but it's all there. And so there's a way that we're all connected. A lot of Native tribes have very personal ceremony practices, and they're only for the members of the tribe. And when they perform them, it's that idea that you're talking to that other realm, that you're in this other place, and it's very sacred. And so a lot of things that we see in history, masks that are brought back, artifacts, we don't know exactly, one tribe to another, how it was used, because the idea is that it was sacred and you didn't speak about it. And that still goes on today with some tribes where there's a lot of ceremonies that are performed that are never, you're not supposed to make art about them, you're not supposed to talk about them, you're not supposed to video them or photograph them, because it's the idea that it's almost ephemeral. It happens there, it happens for the spirits, and then it's released so that it's free back into the world. Where if you were to capture those things, you would trap them in this other place. And so it's real important to, and unfortunately, in our Western world, we want to get it and document it and look at it and have it in our hand to understand all parts. And it's different because it's about being in the moment and being there for what it represents and then letting it go. And I think sometimes as Western people, we have a hard time with that because we want to hold it and have something to remember it by and be able to have a photograph or put it on the wall. And those are things that, I think Indigenous and Native people are very different in that realm of how to connect with your spirit, the spirit part of our world, the sacred part of our world. For me, masks are always that idea of identity and that idea of being able to transform yourself or transport yourself, either one, to another place. And I know that's not what these masks are specifically about, but that's how I have taken the idea of masks for myself to be able to create and navigate in my own work.